world where legends rise and fall with every punch. Where the roar of the crowd fades, but the stories live on. This is where those stories are told. This is Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From the blood, the sweat, and the glory, to the controversies, comebacks, and knockouts, we go behind the ring, no fluff, no hype, and definitely no BS. Just the truth behind the fight game. And we've been doing it for over 2 decades. A podcast pioneer, now a Hall of Famer.
Great. What's that ego gonna be like?
And next, the comeback kid.
Wait, isn't he like 90 or something?
Shut up, he'll hear you. The reigning, defending, undisputed, heavyweight champion of boxing broadcasting. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. And it's on now.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening, I hope you're doing okay. Today's show is being brought to us in part by, of course, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of that book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just go to Amazon.com and check it out. You could also go to BillyCBoxing.com. The publisher did have a special going on. I don't know if it's still going on, but check it out over there too. Hey, busy show again today, like every week. I'll be giving you my thoughts on the latest concerning the scheduled Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao rematch that, quite honestly, I don't know how many people were dying to watch it anyway, but there's been a change, I guess. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. I got some boxing news and rumors to talk about. I got a great email from a listener that I'll read, and you guys can ponder that. I'll be breaking down a couple of fights scheduled for this weekend. We got another great guest scheduled to come on a little bit later. I've told you guys that, in my opinion, there are 2 top referees in the sport of boxing. We've already had the first one on the show, and that was Harvey Dock. And my main man, Charlie Fitch, is the other one, and he'll be joining us a little bit later on the show, so I can't wait for him to come on. But first, I got some fight results to talk about. We were just talking in the chat room about some comments that were made after this particular fight, but the fight I'm talking about is Sebastian Fundora's beatdown of Keith Thurman, and it definitely was a beatdown. If you didn't see it, all you got to do is check it out, because first of all, I don't mean to say I said exactly what was going to happen, but exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. The reach and height was too much for Thurman. His only chance was to get inside, and the biggest thing here is we know that in the past Fundora has been beaten. He lost. He got knocked out cold by a shorter fighter and everything else, but since that fight, and one of the points that I made last week was that Fundora has learned to utilize his reach and height, and he does it with convincing power. And I think that the fight against Thurman, now granted, Thurman was nothing, no young chick, no spring chicken, no young buck in the ring, but he still tried his hardest. One thing I'm going to give credit for to Thurman, and he's not one of my favorite fighters, but a little too tough for his own good. I don't know if you caught it, but on the broadcast, when the referee stopped the fight, Thurman was arguing with him, going, "Come on, let me continue. I'm tough. It was beyond that. His face looked like a double cheeseburger. I mean, he was beaten up pretty bad, in my opinion. But nonetheless, Fundora retained his title. He improves to 24 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, with 16 of his wins coming by knockout. And Thurman drops to 31-2. And hopefully we won't see him in the ring anymore. We won't see him get hurt. I mean, he, whatever. But and just one more comment I want to make. I don't know about you guys, but Mario Ronaldo is the worst. I just can't watch an event with him on it. And by the way, I'm going to be honest with everybody right now. I did not pay to pay for that pay-per-view. I watched it the next day. PBC, I can't stand it. But anyway, in the co-main event, junior middleweight Ioannis Telaz won his fight against Brian Mendoza. And the way the judges scored out were 98-92, and 2 of them had it 97-93. He improves to 12-1 with 8 knockouts. Brian Mendoza drops to 23-5 with 17 of his knockouts. And Mendoza is the cat who knocked out Sebastian Fundora when Fundora got knocked out. So that's my whole point, to back up what I was saying about Fundora really improving, in my opinion. Okay, in the fight that was being billed as the biggest heavyweight fight in history, almost. I mean, I'm exaggerating, of course, but some of the fanfare around Moses Aituma is pretty ridiculous. Is he a good fighter? Yeah. Is he a huge bright spot in the sport of boxing? Yeah, I think he is. Is he there now? No, he's not. I mean, look, he has 2 big wins on his resume. He's an exciting fighter. There's no doubt that the cat possesses power, and he's smart. He's a good fighter. But he has fought Dillian White, who he blew out in 1 round, and many people think that that fight smelled a little fishy. And then his fight against Franklin, which was a devastating knockout. I mean, you give him credit for knocking out a guy that's never been knocked out, but there's a guy that his 2 losses were against 2 good people. All his wins were against. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing Aituma again. He improved to 14-0 with 12 knockouts. He stopped Franklin for the first time in his career at 1 minute and 33 seconds of the 5th round. Franklin drops to 24-3 with 15 of his wins coming by knockout. So it'll be interesting to see who Aituma fights next. There was some coach is saying he's only 21. Yeah, I want to try. Yeah, here's a new feature for you, Coach. Yeah, there's Coach. He's only 21. We get to put that on the screen. So now when Coach comes up with all these funky questions for guests, I'll be able to put them right up on the screen for him. But over in England, as you guys would know, I was watching that. Some great fights, man, especially in the middleweight division. We were talking about the middleweight division last week, and there were some great fights this past week. We were talking about the middleweight division the prior week, and this past week, some more middleweights to keep an eye on. Jerome Warburton upsets the favorite, Nathan Heaney, who, when you talk about these middleweights running that circuit, so to speak, they all fight each other. That's what I love about it, and I'll tell you about that in a second. It was the co-main event. Warburton won by the scores of 98-92, and 2 of the judges had it 97-93. He improves to 17 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws, with 2 of his wins coming by knockout. And Heaney dropped his second of his career. He's 19-2-1 now with 6 knockouts. Warburton started off a little slow in this fight, but then really came on and outboxed Heaney to win the fight. Paul Brad Pauls. Hey, Brad Pauls. Again, all these guys have fought each other all the time. It took care of Thompson, and he was supposed to be the B side of this fight. And Shaquille Thompson, was a big dude, muscular. Started out, with the jab, going for the power. But Brad Pauls, what a tough kid. I really enjoyed watching this fight, and he toppled the Giant to win some middleweight title. I'm just sick of it calling all these titles. There's so many, I'll talk about the world titles, but all these other international and super beans and papa people poopers, we're not. But the fight was waved off, and Paul stuns Thompson with a stoppage, and Thompson was kind of in control of this fight. Pauls was being tough and being a guy that just kept coming forward. And finally, he landed a couple of power shots and put Thompson in trouble in this fight. And he ends up winning when the fight was stopped at 1 minute and 30 seconds of the 9th round. He improves to 21 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. And Thompson loses for the first time at 15-1 now, with 11 of his wins coming by knockout. And I'll tell you, just remember that name, Brad Pauls, because you'll probably see him popping up to fight somebody for some belt because he's in that ballpark now that he won that title this past weekend. And how about Willie Hutchinson? What a character this guy is. He goes in there, and he's taking on Ezra Taylor, who was the favorite in the fight and an up-and-coming fighter in the light heavyweight division. And what happens? Willie Hutchinson wins the fight. I think he stole the fight, but he convincingly stole the fight. 99-91, 98-92 twice. Hutchinson now 20 wins, 2 losses, 14 of his wins coming by knockout. And Taylor drops his first fight. He's now 13-1 with 9 knockouts. And, they're talking to Hutchinson before and after this fight. And he said he's going to prove that he's the best light heavyweight in the world. And we'll see what happens, there was one other fight I wanted to talk about. 2 more fights I wanted to talk about, but one more card. And that is, we had both of these fighters, the main and co-main event. And I just want to give a shout out. You guys know that I love Amelia Moore. She improved to 4-0 with one of her wins coming by knockout when she won the NABF lightweight championship with a win over Bonnie Hunter. She dominated the fight 80-72 twice and 80-71 once. So congratulations to Ms. Moore. And the main event, we had the Frank the Tank Hogan was on this show the Wednesday before this event, and he took care of business as well. He improved to 22-0 when he stopped Patrick Alate in the 5th round to retain his NABF title. So congrats to our previous guests. All right. Let's talk about the Floyd Mayweather thing. So Floyd Mayweather all of a sudden the other day announces that, this fight that, he feels that everybody's clamoring to go watch. That is the rematch between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. Yes, you heard it right. The rematch, we all know that the first fight took place at least 5 to 7 years too late. And now at both of these guys in their 40s, late 40s, looking to do it like everybody cares. No, they don't. All of the fans that, would have cared don't care. And the new fans, they don't care. Okay, so nobody cares. All right, but the only little piece, the little teeny piece of interest that people had was the fact that it was a real fight, that it would count on the records. And we all know how Floyd has built basically a career, a post-career around his 50-0. And just as a reminder, boys and girls, the 50-0 was the whole point of 50-0 was for heavyweights, because no heavyweight has passed 49-0 at all. All right, there has never been a heavyweight that won 49 fights or more than 49 fights without losing, and that, of course, was Rocky Marciano. And Larry Holmes came close to it, and I mean, it was significant for the heavyweight division. But Floyd Mayweather seemed to think that he was going to take that he won 50 fights and not losing, so he retires at 50, that this was this big thing. Well, a lot of fighters made it to 50-0. The difference is Floyd quit before he lost, which was a smart move. Okay, it was a smart move, but it is what it is. But Floyd still thinks that he runs the show. So although they announced that the fight was going to be, a counting fight, a sanctioned fight, Mayweather comes out late last week and he said, as of now, we don't know exactly where the fight was going to be at. We don't know the location. They're talking about doing it in Vegas, but we don't know 100%. And then he says, and this isn't actually a real fight. It's just an exhibition, because he was asked when the fight was going to be. And he says, in an exhibition, we're both winners. He says, so this isn't, going to count. He says, I mean, we just want to go out there and entertain the people and put on a good show. Okay. Listen, if you don't think that this is clearly an indication that Floyd Mayweather, is afraid to lose his O at all costs. Now, the agreement, according to Team Pacquiao, was that it was going to be a real fight. And that was what Manny wanted. So it's going to be interesting to see. The whole real truth behind all of this is simple. Floyd needs money. Floyd, he brags about being 50-0, that he never lost a fight. But you know what? He lost over $1 billion. I mean, this is a guy that made more than $1 billion throughout his 50-0 boxing career. And he's so broke right now that he has to fight. You think, I mean, look, he Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather, then Floyd Mayweather versus, I forget who he's even fighting, and then to cap it all off with a fight that was supposed to be real, but now it's an exhibition against Manny Pacquiao because all the fans want to see it. I got to be honest. How many people even want to see the Tyson fight? I mean, I love Mike Tyson. I love seeing him anywhere, whether he's fighting or, on a show or at an event. I love Mike Tyson, but I don't want to see him fight Floyd Mayweather. I just don't. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's thinking. If I'm Manny Pacquiao, I say forget it. I hope Manny stands up for himself. Manny has let Floyd kind of push him around, throughout the whole thing. I mean, Manny was chasing Floyd long before they fought. And, if it wasn't for Manny Pacquiao, really pushing and the fans behind it, I don't think that Floyd would have fought him. Truthfully, Floyd, he's traditionally looked for the easiest way out. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I think that if they're gonna fight at all, it has to be for real, in my opinion. I just, and I hope that Manny Pacquiao, he stands firm. That's what I am hoping for. But you don't know. And the truth of the matter is how many people really really want to see it. So hey, I'm going to try. We got a new thing going on, and here's coach's comment. We'll put up on the screen. But in any event, I think that Floyd Mayweather. If I don't think that many people want to watch the fight. I think that if he holds out and tries to demand, I think Manny should walk away. I really do. All right, the biggest news that has taken place in boxing, in my opinion, over the last week or so, is the announcement that Alexander Zayas is going to be putting his WBO and WBA titles on the line. And who's he stepping in the ring with? How about Boots Ennis? I love this. I love this because this is exactly what we want to see. It's taking place on June 27th. And here's the thing. I've publicly have said, I honestly feel that Boots, I think he's an extremely talented fighter. Don't get me wrong. I think he's an extremely talented fighter. But I really don't think that I feel similar to the way they've risen, carried Moses Aituma to the top of the heavyweight division, and they've done this with Boots. I think by him fighting Zayas, if he blows out Zayas the way he's been blowing out these other opponents that, in my opinion, shouldn't even be in the ring with him, then I'm going to be impressed. And kudos to Alexander Zayas for taking the fight, for doing the fight. I love this. This is the way it should be, in my opinion. You got a 35-0 with 31 knockouts fighter in Boots. And then Zayas is undefeated too, 23-0 with 13 knockouts. And you know what the best part of this is, in my opinion? It's gonna be on DAZN, so everybody will see it. But it was just announced that Bob Arum signed a deal. They've all signed deals with DAZN, but it was just announced that Bob Arum signed a deal, and that's who Zayas is with. They've been with him for his whole career, or at least since he's been a teenager. And they signed a deal with DAZN. Next thing you know, Matchroom says, yeah, Boots will fight him. I like that. I think that that's the way it should be. Young fighters fighting each other. What's better than that in boxing? So Zayas and Boots, yeah, I'm gonna be loving this when they get it. And where's it going to be taking place? It's going to be taking place in Brooklyn, and in New York. It's hard to do fights in New York as a promoter. It really is. It cost them a lot of money, and several years back, the commission, the New York State Commission would pay for the medicals, which they require the hardest, most strict medical requirements in the sport. I mean, between them and Nevada and New Jersey, I think those are the three toughest ones. But another event in Brooklyn. So, hey, you think Brooklyn can, or any place in New York can compete with some of the places that we got going on. And speaking of going on, I was telling you about our guest. Now, before I introduce him, hopefully he can hear me. If you can see if you can get your video, Charlie. I'm not seeing your video on. I see you there, but I don't see your video. So you might have it shut off. So see if you can get your video. Otherwise, we'll just get you on audio. But I was telling you guys about my who I'm talking about right now. We'll see if he can. Can you hear us, Charlie?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. We don't have a video, but
yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to get the video to work.
All right. Well, if you play with that, and but we can hear you, and we got Charlie Fitch on. I was telling you guys about, in my opinion, the two top referees. We had the first one on previously, and that's Harvey Dock, and my man Charlie joins us now. Charlie, how you doing, brother?
Good.
Aside from trying to get your video to work.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not working.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
But so what's going on?
Um, Not much. Let's see. I was at a memorial service for Don Simpkin last night. He was one of my boxing coach when I was younger, and he just a great. Just can't say enough good things about Don Simpkin. Um,
Yeah, which he was definitely a loss. And you know, it just seems like we're losing a lot of the old time guys, and it makes me a little nervous, to be honest with you, Charlie. But you know, because I'm not that far behind. But first time I met you was I can't believe 15 years ago in 2011 in Hamburg, New York. What you know, when I look back at that, Amanda Serrano was on that card. She was like the co-main event, right?
yeah, that was a good fight card. There were some good fighters on that card that day, and yeah,
Lionel
yeah,
Thompson was the one you did, and he was kind of up and coming when you refed him in that fight when he beat Angel Gonzalez.
yep, yeah. He was a good fighter, Lionel Thompson. Um,
Lionel B, right?
yep, yep.
Was
He was a real gentleman. Fought a nice, good, hard, clean fighter. Um, but he knew how to. I mean, but he knew how to foul. Someone fouled him if the referee didn't do their job. I mean, most good fighters, they'll take matters in their own hands if the referee doesn't address the fouls. But if the referee's doing their job, most fighters they're going to fight clean, and he was that type of fighter. Would fight clean, was very well schooled. Um, yeah, and I keep trying to remember. He fought some good fighters in his career, Lionel Thompson. I think he moved out to Las Vegas um, at one point in time.
Yeah,
It
and
might
he one of his things was he had a solid chin, right? I mean, I don't think I think he eventually got stopped, but I think he was when he was in there when he started fighting, you know, the higher level guys. I remember him hanging in there tough with some hard punching fighters.
Yeah, and in fact, his only losses, from what I recall, were two good fighters. To
Right.
the top level guys, um, and yeah, if he was stopped, it was maybe just only once in his career to a good punching, very knowledgeable fighter. And I wish I had. I don't have Box Rec up right now, or because that's like my. I look at that all the time, and that's just a great source of information. Um,
So listen, the referee's job. You know, you were talking about having a good referee, in when we were just talking about Lionel Thompson's fight. But you bring up a point that I wanted to ask you. The referee's job basically has changed over the years. For example, like when you go way back, before they even made fighters go to a neutral corner after a knockdown, the guy was able to stand over his opponent and attack him as soon as they got to their feet. How do you think you would have been as a referee in that era? No, knowing that you've been trained and safety for the fighters, and obviously you're one of the best at doing that. How do you think if you could go back in time and you were refereeing, and that those were the rules? How do you think it would be? What do what?
well,
Have
that would
you
be
thought
super
of it?
cool to go back in time and to be able to referee the fighters from that time period. Uh, yeah, that's like spending some time in heaven, being able to do that. Um, as far as like how I would do it, I think how I would try to do it would be based on I would try to use this. I think you got to use the standards of the time that you're in. So
Right, right. No,
if
that's what
I'm
I mean. I mean, as
if
a
I'm in the
referee,
50s,
yeah,
I would have to change my mindset from today to how it was then. And that yeah, I'd be run out of the ring after one fight if I applied today's standards to the standards used back then.
You imagine if you went back, if you were able to go back in time and just as you are now, and all of a sudden you're refereeing, and you're right, they would have dragged you out of the ring. But it's with that thought, right? I mean, how good do you think that the referees' safety protocols have changed? I mean, we're talking about that and laughing, but really it wasn't that long ago. So we fast forward to today, and you guys got to take a lot of safety precautions. Tell us about that.
Yep. Safety is definitely something I think that's talked a lot more about now than it's been in previous decades. And there's this continuing advance, continuing to come up with new safety things. But I think we also got to be careful that we don't go too far. Well, because it is a sport that the object is to hurt the other person, and so it's kind of like I heard Arthur McCanny when I was reading his book had a good analogy in it where he said, you're as a referee, you're on a tightrope between the crowds, the fans' demand for violence and safety, and so you're trying to balance those two, and the standards of those two are different today, than they were even in the 1980s, 1970s, 50s, even early 2000s. It's changed now in 2026 from how it was actually even a few years ago. It's changing. So there's a real balance that I don't think I answered your question. Did I? Tell me what was that question again? I'm sorry.
No, I was just asking how much it's changed.
Yeah.
That with the safety, like what you guys obviously you're constantly being forced to, or are you being forced to take classes or attend seminars to keep up with new rules, or I mean, how does that happen?
Well, at a minimum, you have to, I attend your state training, seminar. But I think the referees that really want to excel and the best referees, I see them out there. They're going to other referee trainings. That you're paying out of your own pocket to go to ABC seminars around the country. I usually attend about anywhere from 3 to 5 per year, usually trainings, and you're always learning new stuff at these trainings. A lot, it's like a lot of it will be repeating things you already know, but it's actually good to hear it repeated because it's like, okay, I'm on track. I remember that. I got that in mind. And then every once in a while you hear a new nugget or something like, I kind of forgot about that. So definitely you got to go to all the safety, as many trainings as you can. Darn, I was thinking about something and I forgot what it was. Sorry about that, Billy.
Hey, what was it always does.
Maybe.
But yeah. In your opinion, what was the best fight you ever refereed? I know you've refereed a lot, but there's got to be one.
Quite a few come to mind. So there's I kind of don't want to like the most recently it was the ring fight of the year. That was the most recent excellent fight that I did between the junior lightweights at 130 pounds. One of the best fights I actually did was that was a non-world championship fight. Was a non-televised fight. It took place in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and it was between. I'm looking at it on BoxRec right now. It was a fighter named Trayshawn Wiggins, who was from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and Dakota Linger from West Virginia, and that was the most exciting fight I've ever done that wasn't a world championship fight between those two guys. The crowd, it was just a small little venue in Johnstown. My only first time being there. And it was a 10-round main event, for a minor title. And these two guys took turns hurting one another. And there was a few times where I came close to stopping the fight and where they got rocked. Each one, mostly Trayshawn got rocked the most actually early on. And the fight finally ended, I think maybe around round 6 or so, with Trayshawn landing a one-punch knockout. And to my shock, the fighter from West Virginia got up. I waved it when he got up. I didn't think he was going to get up. What that showed that he got up was to me that when it showed how good conditioning he was in. His leg strength was so good. He must have done a lot of running, in my opinion, to be able to get up from those punches. And that's something that, in my opinion, like the fighters that are in great shape, that's one, like Muhammad Ali. A theory I got is one of the reasons why he had such a great chin was he did so much road work. Like he would do road work in combat boots. And I think that leg strength is real important for being able to absorb a punch, which is kind of odd. You wouldn't think of that, the legs with your brain, but I think it is.
You're 100% correct. I mean, of course, not only can you take a punch with strong legs, but most power punchers have big, strong legs, except, you have the occasional, Tommy Hearns
right.
wasn't known for his, and he was a knockout puncher, even Deontay Wilder, but it's been a pleasure to watch you, in my opinion, since I've known you for more than, 15 years, rise to, I knew you did a lot of refereeing jobs in, let's just say locally, New York, New Jersey, yep. Pennsylvania. I know you were out west, Minnesota area and stuff a lot, but you were also, been all over the world. Hey, by the way, I was at the one of the fights you did in Canada with Denton Daly. It was at Mississauga. It was at some. You remember that place?
Yeah,
it was
I do.
In the middle of it was crazy. It was,
yes.
But anyway,
that was.
It was. That place. I mean, it's nice venue, but it was just kind of unique. But anyway,
that was a devastating knockout.
No, and he was the favorite. He was the local kid.
Yeah.
Denton Daly.
Yeah.
But you also Germany, Japan, Russia, England. How's your ride been, brother?
How's my ride been?
Yeah, how's the ride? The referee ride from Hamburg, New York, in a sense, to around the world. I mean,
it's been unbelievable. I'm pinching myself all the time. It's I'm very fortunate. At Don's service last night, my boxing coach, I was talking about how were it not for him, I would never even have gotten into refereeing. Like he encouraged me. He goes, "Hey, we need some referees. Why don't you come to be a referee?" And at the time, I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." I was like, the training was coming up in Buffalo a month later, and then it came up, and he called me on the phone, and I was like hungover. I was, overslept. And he's like, "Hey, you're going to come to that training." And I was like, my wife's like, "Don's on the phone. He wants to know if you're coming to the training." And I go, "Tell him I'm not going to go." My wife, we'd only been married a year. And she goes, less than a year. And she said, she just handed me phone and looked at me and looked at me. And she said, I can still see the look on her face. She said, "You got a bad habit of telling people you're going to do something and not doing it." And after she said that, I made sure I got to that training, reluctantly. And but as soon as I walked in the door, I was like, "Wow, I'm home. This is where I want to do." And I just made a commitment. I was like hungover driving there. This is a younger Charlie back then, much younger days.
Well, it's a good move that you did that. I remember. Well, yeah. Maybe I shouldn't remember, but I remember.
Let's hear it. And you can say anything bad about me.
I'm not going to say anything bad. It was great. We had a good time. It was at one of the fights at Turning Stone. We ended up all after the fight at that whatever that place is.
Yep, the tavern.
Yeah, and then the next time I see you, I'm like, "Hey, we'll be." And you said, "Hey, no." The commission told me I can't. Remember, we closed it that night.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I used to every time there I would get kicked out. They close it, and we go looking for more beer somewhere else,
Yeah.
more alcohol. So I had I guess too many fun times.
Yeah, no, I remember the one night because John was there, and it was fun.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
listen, one of the other things that maybe some of my listeners and viewers don't know about you is that you're a boxing guy, and that's one of the things I love about talking with you and stuff when we do. So now I want you to put your well. Before I say this, what's your thoughts on some of the one-sided fights that we're subjected to these days? Not as a referee, just as a boxing person. What's your thoughts on that?
Like one-sided in regards to just one fighter is just so much better than the other one, and
And
we
we
know it
all
going
know it.
into the fight. Or
Yes, yes. Going
yes,
into the fight, we all know it,
yeah.
and we're basically expected to watch this fight and think it's showing us something.
Um, my thoughts on it, I just my thoughts are I always feel like the best fighters in the world want to fight the other best fighters in the world. They want to run towards the best fights. And so when I see fighters avoiding seemingly anyhow, and it's not only the fighters themselves, a lot of times it's their management, but when the best fighters aren't fighting each other, sometimes it makes me think, wow, this fighter maybe is not really one of the best, and his management sees something in him that they don't see, that he may not see himself, or she, and so they're kind of purposely of being a little bit careful with who they're fighting. Um, but the best fighters, they make their management make those fights happen. Um, and I'm willing to, I guess, as the fan, there's still a part of me that's a fan. I can't really be a fan anymore, but some of it still lingers, and that part of me is like willing to say, well, uh, in order to have the great fight next one in line, I hope I'm willing to put up with this one that here is pretty, looks pretty straightforward. One one-sided match.
Well, that's my segue to the next question. So let me start off by saying I think what Zuffa Boxing is proposing to do, or what it looks like they're going to do, and I know it's almost as bad talking about that as politics these days, but the truth of the matter is that you have all the sanctioning bodies all making it seem like Zuffa Boxing and Dana White's the evil new evil king coming into town. But the truth of the matter is that model will give us what boxing used to be. In other words, the fighters fighting each other, not becoming devalued after they lose, or if they lose a fight, because they're fighting tougher, younger. But at the end of the day, you're going to have the best fighters rising to the top. And may I even say one champion for each division, So I think what we would see as boxing purists is a better form of boxing. And all it's going to take is the money. If the money keeps flowing, and my big predictions have been, I believe that Usyk will fight his last fight under Zuffa. I believe that Canelo, as a matter of fact, I believe Canelo's next championship fight will be for Zuffa this coming September. And I also think you're going to see Ryan Garcia and Shakur Stevenson end up going over that way. They're already all having conflicts with sanctioning bodies. So do you think that it could be better for the sport? I mean, once everything this is assuming that the fighters are getting paid. In other words, for them to fight under that model, they got to get paid, and then they'll be willing to fight whoever is put in front of them, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm all for the best fighters fighting each other. That's what I'd like to see happen, is the best fighters fight each other. And I kind of always viewed it, the ring champion as the true world champion. But I also respect. I do respect the sanctioning bodies because it gives the fighters opportunities to fight for belts. And so I kind of see it as, well, like if I was in charge of the sanctioning body, I want to have the best fighter be my champion, and I would want them to be seen as the true world champion. So I want to see them fight the other champions and prove that we got the best. And if we don't have the best, then okay, then the guy that beat our champion is now our champion. So now we got the best. But I guess I'm not real familiar with Zuffa, so I don't. If they're going to make the great fights happen, then that's awesome.
Well, the thing is, it's interesting the way you just said about the sanctioning bodies, which to tell you the truth, that mindset could have worked. They're actually doing that as of late because they've had a pact about unification fights and stuff. So you're right about that. But what Zuffa's doing is basically eliminating. They're not going to recognize any of those sanctioning bodies. So fighters that fight under that, like what they just did to your cruiserweight Jay Apatea, the IBF flexed their muscle and stripped them because he fought for a Zuffa title. And now it's going to be interesting to see what happens if fighters like top fighters come and fight. I think McKillian should go and fight him. And it's going to be interesting to see because he's regarded as one of the top cruiserweights, if not the best.
Oh yeah, he's a great fighter.
So let's see what happens. If he's still a draw and people still have him on top, then that stripping is going to mean nothing. Yeah. And I think other fighters are going to start to do it if they can make the money. That's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, it's about the money, right?
The money is definitely important for the fighters, real important. But I think like the greatest fighters, they got a lot of pride. Like you mentioned Canelo, he didn't run he took on everybody. And those great fighters like that, they didn't avoid any fighters. They ran towards the hardest fights to prove that they were the greatest. And they're the ring champion. So that's the Ring Magazine champion. So.
That's changed. That's changed. It was the same. I recently heard an interview with Oscar De La Hoya, and he was complaining. He was complaining about how the rankings are now that Turkey Al-Rashid owns the mag, and kind of alluding to the fact that he thought that they were padded. But that was the problem when Golden Boy owned it. All his fighters were there. So yeah, but you're talking about the way it was back in the day when it was clearly the best fighter. I don't know anymore. The ratings are so crazy. You got, a guy number one who's supposed to be rated number one, and then nobody else rates him at all. How can he be that good? I don't know.
Yeah. I miss like Ring Magazine in the 1980s when Randy Gordon, and Burt Sugar had that, and they had the top 20. So like being ranked in the top 20 really had meaning. And I kind of wish Ring would adapt that because there's a lot of fighters who are good fighters, but they're not in the top 10, but they're still a top 20. Top 20 in the world is pretty darn good.
No, yeah. If we were doing the top 20, but conceivably, 20 times 4. So you're looking at the top 80. That could be conceivably because
you're talking about each sanctioning body's ranking,
right? Because that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah. I don't look at those. I only look at the Ring.
Okay. Well, the Ring. So
and that's why I wish they did 20 instead of 10.
Yeah. Yeah. Well. They did. What did I notice? It mustn't have been in print, but it was online. They did the top 11. To get somebody on the rank who recently fought. I don't recall what it was, but anyway, where are we going to see you again? Where are you? When's your next assignment? Do you know?
Going to be in Atlantic City next Saturday, April 11th, at a Boardwalk Hall. So that's going to be that's like a treat getting to go to Atlantic City for me because in my time period in the 80s, in the 90s, before I got into refereeing, was a time when, Atlantic City and New Jersey was like them and Vegas were equal in my mind as a boxing fan. Those were equal places. So like I just love the history there and being there in Atlantic City.
Yeah, but remember when it went downhill? It went downhill real fast in what was it, the late '80s, and it came back though. It came back in the late '90s. It wasn't. That's the way I remember it anyway.
Yeah, it came back for a bit. It was like when they had what was it? TV KO shows were going on.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well,
Yeah.
Larry Hazard turned everything around in Jersey, so I mean, he's the man there. That's
Yeah. He's you don't get any better than him as a commissioner, and I think that's because he he was a referee.
He's a boxing guy.
He's a boxing guy. He understands it fully. You don't understand it any better than him.
No,
So he fully understands it, the sport.
And that's always been my argument that's what boxing needs, more boxing guys.
I agree.
But
I agree.
Hey, Charlie, I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to seeing you ringside again soon.
Hey, I do too. Thank you for having me, Billy. It was a real honor to be here.
Hey, next time we'll figure out your video so we can.
I know. I'm sorry I couldn't get my video going.
Here I thought you were this computer savvy guy.
Oh God, no! My wife could do it. I should have talked to her and get it set up in advance.
Yeah, you should have let her do it. I'm going to call her and have her shame you the way she shamed you to become a referee, for God's sake.
Oh yeah, man, she kicks my ass all the time.
All right, Charlie, be good. I'll see you soon.
Hey, take care, man. All right. All the best to you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. That's Charlie Fitch. In my opinion, one of boxing's top, and I'm saying top 2 referees out there. The thing I've always said about referees is if sometimes you don't remember who was refereeing the fight, that means they did a good job. Because I can't stand the mentality, and there's plenty of referees out there that think it's fighter A versus fighter B featuring referee so and so. No, I want to watch the fight. I don't want to watch the referee. Anyway. Yeah, so Zuffa Boxing, they're going to be fighting this weekend, so we'll see. It seems that all of their fights on paper look pretty competitive. So, and I think we've been seeing some competitive fights from other promoters as well recently. Like I was just talking about the great fight, Zayas against Boots. That's been made. I think it's I call it the Dana White effect. I think that these promoters they're kind of being forced to make a good fight. Either way, we are. You got to be honest. We are getting some decent fights. So here's one. This is my. You guys know I love the UK, but this is a crazy fight because the fighters that are taking place. Dave Allen, and he's a heavyweight. That's pretty popular, and he's gonna be in a fight at the Copper Box Arena against a monster of a guy when he takes on Arslak Makadurov, and we know that he's a power puncher. This guy. And David Allen is a heavyweight that you look at and you wonder how he's going to do. And when he's on, he's on. It's going to be an interesting fight. So we'll see what happens with that. It's taking place in Doncaster. They announced the fight date between Sam Eggington and Walker, Cohan Walker. That fight is taking place on May 2nd, and it's going to be on DAZN. So May 2nd. For the Walker-Eggington fight. And speaking of fights, we got some fights scheduled for this weekend, and I'm going to break down a couple of them. First and foremost, we have a middleweight clash, and you guys know how much I am digging the middleweights. This one's going to take place with Endry Savdira, and Denzel Bentley. I'm saying his name wrong. Is it Endry? I know that I can't pronounce it. Endry is a once beaten fighter, 17-1 with 14 of his wins coming by knockout. His only loss came at the hands of Untundi William. It was a 10-round unanimous decision loss in October of 22, and his draw was against Cesar Tapia in 2024. It was a majority draw. He's never been stopped. The computer ranks him at number 29. He's not ranked anywhere, WBC, WBO, IBF, WBA ring, ESPN, but the top 100 computer, which I happen to like, has got him at number 33. He's 34 years old. He's going to be 3 years older than his opponent. He's 5'10" and a half, roughly the same as his opponent, 74-inch reach. His best 3 wins in his career was a second-round stoppage over Roger Guerrero in 2023, who was 17-4-1 at the time. He had an 8th-round stoppage over Isaac Hardman, who was 15-2. That took place in 2024. And an 8th-round stoppage over Mikkel Nielsen in last year, and he was 13-2. So those are his best wins. Now he steps in with Denzel Bentley, who's got a record of 21 wins and 3 losses, 17 of his wins coming by knockout. His 3 losses, well, he was stopped by Felix Cash in April of 2021. He went 12 rounds and lost against Zanabak Alim Hanalevi in November of 2022, and he lost a real close majority decision to Nathan Heaney, who we were talking about earlier, by the way, in November of 2023. His last fight was 15 months ago, so nobody has him ranked except the WBO. They have him ranked at number 1. He's 31 years old. He's got almost 81% knockout ratio. He's about the same at 5'11" height-wise. Fights out of London. He's a former world title challenger. His best wins, he stopped Marcus Morrison in 2022. He stopped Kieran Smith in 2023. He stopped Derek Oze in 2024. And his last fight was a 12-round decision over Brad Pauls, who I just was talking about earlier, who I thought was he's going to be in the mix. I mean, like, him fighting Bentley in this fight would have been a good fight. Anyway, this fight between Endry and Bentley is for the WBO interim belt. How do I see it going? I know Endry's a tough fighter. And he too is a knockout puncher. I just think that Denzel Bentley will take this fight. He's a better fighter, and he's had more fights. I think his experience level is there, and he's fought better competition. Denzel Bentley over Endry, and I can't pronounce his last name. Now the other fight I'm going to talk about is Derek Chisora going up against Deontay Wilder. You got to ask yourself, why? Well, the reason is because Derek Chisora just wants to fight in his 50th pro fight. And Deontay Wilder is trying to get yet one more shot at a title. And if he wins this fight, you watch, he will get a shot at a title. Deontay Wilder brings power. I mean, let's face it, he's a one-trick pony. He's got a powerful right hand. He has nothing else. He can't move. He should be able to jab, but he doesn't. He throws punches from crazy angles, which kind of works for him. But he's a stumbling, bumbling guy in there. Very awkward. His chin is very suspect. He's been knocked out several times. And he does. When I say suspect, that's probably not that fair, because he's stayed on his feet. Now, whether he's conscious or not is a whole other story. But, he's going to have 5-inch height advantage and a 9-inch reach advantage over Derek Chisora. Of course, he's a former world champion. The computer currently ranks him at number 43, which to me makes sense. But the WBC has him at number 12. He's not rated anywhere else except the top 100, which surprisingly has him ranked higher than the computer, the BoxRec computer at 26. He is a knockout puncher, 98% knockout ratio. His biggest wins were really, and when you look at his resume, his biggest wins throughout his career was against the same guy. His 2 wins over Luis Ortiz, the first one in 2018 and the second one in 2019. Those were his biggest wins against a 74-year-old fighter. All the top fighters beat him, Zhang and Parker, and of course Fury. The thing about the Fury fights, he got to fight Fury 3 times, 3 times. And, he got paid well all 3 times. And in my opinion, he lost all 3 times. I mean, that draw, he did not win. That was really a robbery for Tyson Fury. So he gets a draw. And then the other fights were knockout losses. So really, my statement about him being a one-trick pony is true. Now, he steps in the ring with Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora just wants to fight his 50th fight. He's got a record of 36 wins, 13 losses. He was stopped 4 times. All 13 fights that he lost were all against top fighters. And he's been banged around. He's had his knockout ratio is substantially less at 64%. He's never been a world champion, but he's been a former world heavyweight title challenger. Currently, he is ranked by the WBC at number 13 and the IBF at number 2 and the WBO at number 7. He's not ranked by the WBA, the Ring Magazine, or ESPN, or the Top 100, which was strange. His best wins, I picked 3. He won a close split decision over Kubrat Pulev back in 2022, a 10-round decision over Joe Joyce, and he had the decision over Otto Wallen last year in 2025. That was his last fight. Like I said, he's fought some of the best fighters. How's this fight going to go? Well, it all depends on how Derek Chisora is looking at this fight. Is he looking at this fight to go out with a win? To say his 50th fight was a win? Or does he just want number 50? As far as Deontay Wilder is concerned, his record 44-4 and a draw. He wins this fight, and he's going to get a shot at somebody. Whether Usyk fights him or whether the heavyweight title gets broken up, at some point or what, he's going to get a shot. There's more in the line for Deontay Wilder. I just think, who am I rooting for? I'm rooting for Derek Chisora. Who do I think is going to win? I think Wilder's going to connect. I think Wilder's going to get a shot in, and Derek Chisora's had a lot of miles on him. I think Deontay Wilder's going to catch him. Now, with that said, if Derek Chisora comes out and just attacks Wilder, it's going to take a bit to knock Wilder out. I listen. I'll be rooting for Derek Chisora, but I think Wilder's going to win. That's my opinion, but I won't be rooting for him. I got a pretty good email from my man Jim Glenn over in the UK. You guys know I love the UK, man. And he says, "Hey, Billy C, Jim Glenn here. Just a little exercise for your show." I appreciate that. We're always looking to exercise the show. He said this is stir up some talking points. He wants to revise the divisions, and he's proposing. We've been talking about this, and he's proposing a 12 division system with flyweights going up to 110 pounds, but he does have super heavyweight. So in his opinion, flyweight going up to 110 pounds, bantamweight going up to 121 and a half pounds. So going from 111 to 121 and a half. Featherweight 122 pounds to 132 and a half pounds. Lightweights from 133 to 143 and a half pounds. I'm curious to know why you got the half pound in there every time. You got to let me know, Jim. But what did I leave off? Junior welterweight 144 to 154 and a half pounds. Welterweight 155 to 165 and a half pounds. That's pretty big. And middleweights 166 to 176 and a half pounds. And he says Hopkins was a true middleweight. You're saying walking around. Are we saying same day weigh-ins? Are we saying just before the fight weigh-ins? Because I think these weight classes would work if you did something like that. He's saying super middleweight 177 to 187 and a half. Light heavyweight 188 to 198 and a half. Cruiserweight 199 to 209. Heavyweight 210 to 2 and a quarter. And super heavyweight over 225 pounds. Interesting. I to tell you the truth, to me, I've always felt that the heavyweight division should be up to whatever, just like they have it now. Should we modify it and maybe extend the cruiserweight division a little bit? Maybe. Maybe a heavyweight can't just be 200 pounds. Maybe 210, or above, and a cruiserweight could go up to 210. I don't mind that, but light heavyweight, that jump from light heavyweight now, at 185 pounds, and then you go to cruiserweight, to add another 10 pounds. I mean, I don't know. It works out mathematically to have heavyweights 200 pounds and over, but with some of the big guys today. And the other weight class, the weight class I always kind of start from, in my opinion, is the middleweights. I mean, to me, that's like, such a classic division, and that's 160 pounds. So interesting. I do think that, at middleweight at 160 pounds, a super middleweight could either, fight at 160 or go up to light heavy, So same thing with welter and junior middleweight. I'm good with those weights, the fluctuation there. But interesting. Appreciate it, Jimmy. So some other news I just wanted to say, it's been rumored that Noel McKillian, who's the WBC cruiserweight champion, is going to be taking on the household the household name, who happens to be the Bridgerweight NABF title champion, and that's Lumboria Pinchuk, who's got a record of 17-4-2. So Pinchuk against McKillian in his defense. Why? I say this. I think that I think that Noel McKillian deserves a big payday. And whether he does or not, I think he needs to have a big payday. Now, the WBC obviously is going to follow suit with the IBF. So if Noel McKillian really wanted to make some money, he would fight Jay Apateo, and if the WBC strips him, I believe that that'll add more juice to Zuffa, because if Noel McKillian decides to throw the WBC belt in the garbage for a huge payday that he would never get fighting Pinchuk, how many other fighters do you think will do that? I think a lot. I think a lot. I think it all boils down to the moolah. Um, Speaking of money, there's a heavyweight contender. He was on the way up, and he ended up losing a fight, and it's like he's trying to build himself up. And he's only 26 years old. That's Jared Anderson. He calls himself the real big baby. And he just signed a deal with Queensberry Promotions now. He has um, Frank Warren and Top Rank. So, we got Top Rank, we got Queensberry, and we got Frank Warren's Queensberry and Top Rank with Anderson now. I don't know why I'm stumbling through this so much. They're with Anderson right now, and obviously he's going to get some exposure on the deals with DAZN. I'm wondering if DAZN is anteing up to have some of these guys put their fighters against each other, or if it was part of the deal or what. But I know I know they're making some money. And speaking of DAZN, did you hear that they have an in-flight option now? So if you're on a plane, I guess you can watch DAZN. I don't know. But anyway, hey, listen, boys and girls, I appreciate you stopping by. And I wanted to thank Charlie for joining us. That's Charlie Fitch, that is. And make sure you stay tuned. Next week we obviously, like we have been, we'll be getting some good guests. So we'll have another one. We're booked through into May already. So we got guests lined up. So we'll be talking about that. I'm going to be bringing back some segments that we used to do. And one of them is the Blast from the Past. I think I'm going to start doing that again, and I think I'm going to do it with a little twist. I'm going to try to take a modern fighter, maybe in the same weight class, maybe somebody that's got, getting all the accolades and what have you, and we'll do a blast and compare them to not just show an older fighter and try to, get some education out there for some of the younger fans that don't know. But anyway, and if you do know, you'll get an interesting refresher on it. But thanks for showing up. Make sure you tune in next time. Same bat channel, same bat day, same. Just show up next time, man. Be good.